Hello everybody, this is John Hopkins with Baltimore Heritage, and we're back with another of our 5-minute Histories videos. And today we're going to talk about the building behind me, the Pratt House, here on West Monument Street at the corner of Park Avenue. If you know where the Maryland Center for History and Culture is, the former Maryland Historical Society, we're right there. In fact, the building is part of their campus. I have to start with a quick thanks to the folks at the city's Historic Preservation Commission for doing yet another great job of researching this building and material that I'm using for today's video. So thanks so much, everybody at CHAP. I thought I would start with talking about Enoch Pratt and then talk about the building. But let's shift things up a little bit and talk about the building first, and then I'll say a few words about Enoch Pratt. The building was built in 1848. Pratt and his wife Maria purchased 2 parcels here on West Monument Street for the whopping sum of $12,000. But they were buying into a very hot real estate market. The Washington Monument, which is just a block away, had been built, and in fact, Mount Vernon Place had already been fully developed. The streets here had been paved, and underneath the paved streets, there was water and gas lines. So this was what was called prime for real estate development. When the Pratts built their building, they built it to make a statement. First of all, it was big, 50 feet wide, 5 bays. Second of all, it was freestanding. It's not a Baltimore row house. And third of all, they built it in a style that in other cities had taken off, but in Baltimore it really hadn't so much. And that's the Greek Revival style. We have a few examples of that. We're mostly Federal style and Italianate style. We've got a few Greek Revival styles. If you're an architecture buff, an older building at 107 West Monument Street, built by George Morton, is also in the Greek Revival style. And in a lot of ways, the Pratt House here is a mirror image of that building. So come on down and check that out if you're into architecture. This is what one gentleman said upon seeing the Pratt House in 1848, just after it was built. He said, "Seeing a superb building crowning the corner, I hastened up. I was all anxiety to know what prince was to reside here. Aha, aha! I see the marble portico, which was intended for Matthew St. Clair Clark's place in Washington." And in fact, the wonderful signature portico was intended for another house that was to be built on Lafayette Square in Washington, D.C. It never got built, and the Pratts snatched up this piece of architecture and brought it up here to Baltimore. The house at that point was 2.5 stories tall. After living in it for 20 years, the Pratts decided that they wanted a bigger house. I am not sure why they made that decision, but they did. And they brought on one of the preeminent architects of the day, Edmund Lind. Lind, you might know his other sort of really wonderful work is the Peabody Institute on Mount Vernon Place. He was thinking big there too. Here, he added a 3rd story, and then he added a mansard roof and tucked in a 4th story. So he essentially doubled the square footage of the Pratt's house. Enoch lives here until he died in 1896. Maria lives here with her 2 sisters until she dies in 1911, and the sisters shortly after. Per the stipulations of Enoch's will, when the last of the sisters die, the house is transferred to the trustees of the Sheppard Institute. Moses Sheppard, back in the 1850s, had started one of the nation's premier mental health institutions. Enoch Pratt had given to it financially over his lifetime, and now in his death, and his sister's death, had given his house. The problem was the trustees did not want a grand house in Mount Vernon. They wanted cash to continue to expand. And so they decided to sell. It was not a hot real estate market in Baltimore back in 1912. It took 4 years to sell, but it finally did, to a woman named Mary Washington Kaiser. She bought it specifically as a gift to the Maryland Historical Society. Her late husband, Irvine, had been a longtime member and really enjoyed it. So with this gift, Miss Kaiser gives the Maryland Historical Society its first home of its own. It had shared offices with other places before. And to this day, it owns it. It's part of their campus. All right, let's talk about Enoch Pratt. Who was Enoch? He was born in 1808 in a place called North Middleborough, Massachusetts. His father had a nail factory and a wholesale hardware business, and that's where Enoch learned the trade. In the 1830s, while he was in his 20s, he did what a lot of New Englanders were doing and moved to Baltimore. With our harbor and our railroad network, those were two incredible economic engines, and a lot of folks wanted to get in on it, including Enoch. He started his own hardware business here that flourished, but he also did a bunch of other things. He was the first ever president of the Safe Deposit Company of Baltimore, which was the second of its type in the nation. He was the director of the Savings Bank of Baltimore, the third of its type in the nation. He was president of the Farmers and Planters Bank. He was the director of 4 railroads, including the very profitable Philadelphia, Wilmington, and Baltimore Railroad Company. And he was president of the Maryland Steamboat Company. So he was making lots of money from lots of different places. He was civically engaged his entire life. He was an ardent abolitionist and a Union supporter during the Civil War. But he's probably best remembered for his gift of the Enoch Pratt Free Library to Baltimore. In 1886, so 10 years before he passed away, he gave the city $1.1 million. And this is what he said he wanted. He wanted a free circulating public library open to all citizens, regardless of property or color. So a library open to everybody. And that's what he got. His gift was allowed us to build the main branch and then 4 neighborhood branches. But he also inspired somebody else, a lot of other people, but somebody notable. I know you'll know his name, Andrew Carnegie. Carnegie, he said, quote, "Mr. Pratt was my pioneer." Carnegie went on to give money to start close to 2,500 libraries across the country, and here in Baltimore, 20 new branches. He gave a gift that expanded Pratt's system with 20 more neighborhood branches. So if you've ever checked out a book from a neighborhood branch, or you're going to go check one out, you can thank Enoch for his wonderful idea, and then Andrew for his wonderful gift. I'm going to wrap up and suggest that the next time you go to the main branch of the Pratt Library, which is just around the corner, stop by here, take a look at this wonderful Greek Revival architecture place, and then go on back to the library and thank Mr. Pratt for the incredible vision that is still going strong today. All right, thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.